Hey, what's up, garden friends? How's everybody doing? I hope you're good. I'm great. Spotlight the roadkill cactus. It's adorable and a really cool cactus. A very easy to grow cactus. For starters, the name here on this cactus is actually Consulea Rubescens, but it's also Opuntia rubescens. So these occur naturally in parts of the Caribbean, like the Greater Antilles, the West Indies, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, parts of Florida even, which does say something about its care. This is a cactus that can take a decent amount of rainfall. However, that's also in areas with very well draining porous soil and hot climates. Indoors, growing this in a pot, it's all kind of irrelevant because it's not going to be growing in those same conditions. That name, roadkill cactus, that's because it has sort of a pattern and texture along its pads, along its growths that look a little bit like tire tracks. And because this cactus is very flat. The pads are very flat, very smushed, just as if they've been driven over by a car. So, roadkill. Cute. At this smaller size, it is rather adorable with their little pads coming off to the sides as if they're saying, hey, how are ya? As this grows, it can get up to 20 feet tall. Kind of a tall and skinny cactus. They're frost sensitive, so probably zones 9B and up, not something that's going to take cold for a very long time, especially if conditions are wet. And just like other Opuntias, these are extremely easy to propagate. I will be doing at the end of this video, which won't be long. This is going to be a pretty short video. I just kind of wanted to spotlight this guy and give some general care requirements. I picked this up to use in a planter that's going to be used as a Christmas gift for someone. I'm going to be modifying it a little bit. That video should be out probably right after this one, actually. So this one's newer and younger and still, like, adorable. I have another one, though. Those of you who have been subscribed and watching videos on this channel for a while may remember a couple of years ago I did like a pick my pot sort of thing, and I had this new cactus and I had a few different pots, couldn't decide which one I wanted to use, so I had everybody else pick it out for me and ended up going with this one. I don't remember if that's what everybody decided on, but it's what I chose. But anyways, that's the pot I put my roadkill cactus in. Actually, quite hard to get this entire thing into frame. I'm not working with a lot of space here, but on this larger one, you can see that texture a little bit better. The roadkill, the tire track characteristic, sort of a bumpy pattern that's on there. And then on these pads, which I believe go 12 to 18 inches long when they grow off to the sides of a mature plant, you can see there are these like nubs coming up here. On a typical Opuntia, that would look more like the developing fruit, right? Where it has flowered and it's developing its little prickly pears. On this, that is actually the nub where the new flowers should be coming out when this gets back into its active growth. The flowers are generally a reddish orange to even a yellow color, and they sort of just pop out of the top of those little nubs, or whatever you want to call them, the little cactus balls that they're growing on the ends of those pads. They are winter dormant, though that does vary depending on growing conditions. A lot of dormancy and growing habits and whatnot, that all varies a lot depending on your latitude, how many hours of sun they're getting a day, the intensity of the sun, temperature, those sorts of things. I am in a grow space indoors where things are artificially lit, and there is some natural light where I've been keeping this big guy, and the temperatures are fairly warm now. Because of that, even though it should be in a dormancy right now, it's starting to put out new growth. That isn't really typical for indoor care. Typically indoors in the house, a east, west, southeast window, one of those would be ideal for these guys because they like part sun to full sun. Full sun is really best if it is morning sun and then filtered throughout the rest of the day. There's a common misconception with cactus that because there's this idea that, oh, cactus are from the desert, really hot there, it's really sunny, and there's not much water, that means you just stick them in the intense sun and not water them. It's really not the best way to keep them, especially if they're in a pot. Being in a pot is very different than being in the ground. Outside in the ground, these may end up seeding and showing up in places that are maybe filtered in the afternoon. There are cliffs and overhangs and things to shade them and protect them at times. And with these guys, they're native to parts of Florida and the Caribbean, so they can take a heavy amount of rainfall so long as temperatures are right and day lengths are right and that soil's draining and drying out very quickly. Just not that hot in the house. Indoors, you're not going to have temperatures in the mid 80s and lower 90s, and it's totally different. So bright morning sun, filtered afternoon sun, watered maybe once every 2 to 4 weeks. Overwatering them will still rot them out. With this guy, with my big roadkill cactus, I transition this outdoors very, very slowly. I put it into what's mostly shade, and I slowly bump it up over the course of a few weeks, giving it more and more light. And it did at one point get too much sun over the summer, and it looked like it was going to scorch. Luckily, it didn't damage any of the plant tissue to a point where it's too terribly noticeable, but by the time I had caught it, I got it straight out of the sun and moved it to a spot where it was getting roughly probably 4 or 5 hours of morning sun. Then it was filtered throughout the rest of the day. Like I've said that over and over again, filtered throughout the rest of the day. When it's their proper growing season, these will actually grow very, very quickly. I've made sure to fertilize this. I start off by using a tomato fertilizer, strong cell walls, strong roots, really good important things for plant growth. And then a couple weeks after applying that, I just switched to an all-purpose. Sometimes I would even use a fish fertilizer for them. They responded very, very, very well to that. This has grown an awful lot since I planted it up back in 2016. Easily tripled in size. Another really great thing about this cactus, other than it just being cute and being fairly low maintenance, I really like its size and structure. Now 20 feet tall, that's pretty big. They stay narrow. The majority of opuntias, of prickly pears, they're not great to have in the house because, well, they get really wide. They're kind of intrusive to the space. You can see these trunks on here are just now, probably within the past year, starting to fill out and get more of a round shape to them. Since they only get to be 6 inches in diameter, you can keep this in a pot and bring it inside for a pretty long time. Yeah, 20 feet tall might be a stretch to keep indoors. However, they're very easy to propagate. They're a very forgiving cactus, and they are nearly spineless. And they're not as full of the glaucids, which are like a fine, very, very, very hard to see, tiny little white needle that is in the center of the spines on a lot of opuntias. I can't stand those glaucids. They get stuck everywhere. They feel like fiberglass. You practically need a magnifying glass and tweezers to get them out of your skin. I don't have much of that with these guys. There are some, but not many. You can see where they would be. What's going to be hard to see on camera, there are a few very, very small spines on there, but nothing extreme, nothing that's going to cause a lot of problems when needing to handle this one or repot it or propagate it. Point being, when this gets too big, you can just cut its head off. You can cut its head off, let it callus, let the piece callus and dry up, and then you can stick it back out in the soil and it'll just grow into a new plant. I'm even going to come in here and just clip these pieces off, just a couple of them. Try and get in a little bit closer than I did with the other one. I should be using a more thin snipper than this, so that this would be more flush. And then where that's been cut, obviously you need to make sure to keep it clean. You can dab some cinnamon on there, help dry it out and seal it up a little bit more quickly. And I'll be doing the same thing with these pads, waiting for these pieces right here to dry up. Can lay them down on top of a clean, sterile potting medium flat, and just keep that potting medium moist, let it dry out in between, but spray it down every so often. And they can start to root out their sides, and they'll start to put up new growth along the edges of the pad and root down. Or what I prefer to do is I'll just take this entire piece once that's dried out, submerge it a little bit into some potting medium, and just leave it be. They'll start to root and grow all on their own very, very, very easily. I've never found that they need a rooting hormone to start going and doing their thing successfully, but I mean, there's no reason you couldn't use one. I actually cut one of these off because I'm going to be feeding it to my tortoise. He needs a cactus snack. And then I'll be propagating this other one. I could even cut this in half and take both of those pieces, insert them into a pot. They'll take off growing just like this one did. Super fun and easy cactus. It can be tricky to find cactus that get to be a decent size in a fast amount of time that aren't going to be something that is kind of a hindrance to have indoors. But because of the narrow growth structure on these, they're really great candidates to have inside for a fast-growing tall cactus. And they're not covered in giant spines that are going to tear you up. It is a good idea every so often to take a damp sponge, fill a bowl with some warm water, put a drop or so of some dish soap in there, dip a sponge in there, and wipe them down because they do get dusty inside, and that can block the amount of sunlight they're getting. This one has more of a glaucous, natural, powdery coating on it. I keep wanting to come out here and dust it, but it's not That's not coming off. It's not dust. And that's a characteristic I didn't notice on it very much when it was smaller. Like, these guys don't really have much of that on them, so maybe that's just something that comes with age and with their growth. I don't know. Just wanted to keep them clean. All right, that's okay. That's gonna do it. It's a fun, rewarding cactus. I'm a big fan of. Wanted to do a spotlight on it, especially because I'm going to be using this in a planter that's coming up soon. I can refer back and say, hey, go watch that video. You want to know more about it. Try them out, Cutest Rubescens or Consulea Rubescens, Cutest Rubescens. It's all the same plant. I hope everybody's doing well. Comment down below, let me know some fun cactus you're growing in your house, any experiences with the roadkill cactus, or you can hit me up on Instagram at Tropical Plant Party. I have the rest of my social media linked down below in the description, so you can follow me and I'll follow you back. It's a lot of fun seeing everybody's plant pictures and nerding out with everybody. Hey, and don't forget to hit that thumbs up. It helps the video a ton, helps the channel a lot, lets me know I've been doing a good job, so thank you so much for doing that. I really do truly appreciate it. And subscribe as well. Upload multiple times a week, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. That way you know when new videos come out. I hope everybody's doing well and having a great day. Go out and get you a roadkill cactus. As always, and most importantly, everybody, keep on growing. Bye-bye.